Hi everyone, I'm Marcus. I work in developer relations with Edge and Node, and I am here with two guests from the IoTeX tech stack. We're going to be having them coming in here and sharing how they integrate with Depin. And if you haven't heard about Depin before, this is going to be an introduction, and then also how to get building with them and also understanding Depin really as the entire ecosystem as a whole. So it's really exciting to have them here. The graph is also in collaboration and trying to get more Depin things going on right now. So I'll just say that in publicly right now, which is quite exciting. And this is kind of a conversation, if you will, with two members of the Depin narrative. And I'm really excited to have them here today and introduce what they're working on in the Depin ecosystem. So introducing Giuseppe and Simone from IoTeX. How you doing, guys? If you could just introduce yourself to the group, as well as just say a little bit about yourself and your experience within Web3. That'd be great.
Well, first of all, thanks, Marcus, for having us. It's really cool to speak here and join your community of devs. And there are lots of cool things that we want to share. And also, maybe some sneak peeks, or maybe we can give some nice sugar here for the people listening. So I'm Giuseppe. I'm part of the DevRel team at IoTeX, which Simone is heading. This is my third year now with IoTeX, and it's been a great journey, going from sort of like working up to when Depin is starting to finally catch fire. And it's something that we've been working on for years. And, I think one of the most interesting part of our job is to help builders, come into this sort of like sector and build meaningful applications. And finally, we're seeing a lot of like very meaningful applications in the sort of like physical world using finally blockchain technology. A little bit about myself. I've been in the space for a few years. I've got a background in communication, so very different, non-tech. Then I started learning a little bit of web dev and smart contracts on my own. And then everything else that I've learned in the past 3 years, I think maybe 95% is thanks to Simone here. So it's one of the other perks of being with the IoTeX team is to always learn interesting stuff.
I'm Simone, head of developer relations at IoTeX. Great to be here. Thank you for having us. And I guess I'm the teacher in IoTeX. I'm the one who tries to explain everything, or at least trying to learn, deal with some like infra stuff, and then trying to convey the why and the what to the team and to the external community from the technical side. And while Giuseppe deals more with like relations and marketing and making everything works and doing the real work. So let's very quickly go through Depin. I think the best way to go to explain what is Depin, if anyone is not familiar with it, it's by going by examples, right? So what are Depin applications? And Depin stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network, and it's a methodology that utilizes blockchain to incentivize the creation of community-owned infrastructures in the physical world. What do these infrastructures look like? Well, as the name says, they are infrastructures. So think of energy infrastructure, connectivity infrastructure, but also any other type of public utility, from car sharing is also could be a community-owned infrastructure, up to, drones, shipping packages for anyone who needs this service could be another community-owned infrastructure. And so everything comes down to community owning some device or machine that makes one piece of this infrastructure, one node of this infrastructure. So I own one part of this infrastructure in the form of a device or a machine. And then this machine provides whatever service or utility or data collection that this infrastructure is supposed to provide or collect. And I, as the owner of this device, get rewarded for investing into this infrastructure, and my rewards come from blockchain assets. So obvious examples of Depin applications, from the most popular one is, of course, Helium is a very good example of a Depin application. They have a node of the infrastructure that is 5G antenna or a LoRaWAN router or access point. You buy one, you put it in at work, and you start earning rewards for contributing to the growth of their infrastructure, as well as DY or decentralized Wi-Fi infrastructures, which are very similar, just using Wi-Fi as a service rather than 5G. But also a lot of our new applications are coming out, like, for example, energy infrastructures, right? If you have solar panels or you have any means to generate and accumulate energy, then you can like join these these like community-aware infrastructures with your own like energy system or battery to provide energy to whoever needs it, right? So this is basically the foundation of Depin, and it's somehow summarized into this slide where you see on the left side these like any sort of smart device that can be an access point, I don't know, a drone, even a coffee machine I see here. It's an example of a vending machine that could make an infrastructure as well. And all these devices basically contributing some data to prove something they've done in the real world, whether it's data collection or doing something or providing a service or a utility. And this data somehow makes its way eventually to blockchain, where the app lives, that somehow distributes some rewards or means some assets to the owners of these devices. So,
I wanted to add maybe something real quick, because sometimes it makes I think it helps ticket for people, right? If you think in the same way, sort of like as DeFi in a way started like decentralizing finance and maybe scaling finance in a way that like all of a sudden you could send payments or do financial stuff peer-to-peer without intermediaries all around the world. In the same way, I think Depin is decentralizing infrastructure to scale it, so that maybe if infrastructure can be deployed in parts of the world where maybe AT&T wouldn't go because they have no interest in it, or maybe other gigantic energy giants wouldn't do it, or maybe if they are present, maybe it's like fossil fuel based, or it's very high cost for users. So in a way, decentralizing this and creating like peer-to-peer networks makes it so that the individual can somehow earn rewards for providing this infrastructure, which also means lower cost for the end users, because the cost of infrastructure is much less. There is not like one single company that like drops billions, like I don't know, like AT&T, for example. I'm not hating on them. It's just an example that came to mind. They maybe spend dozens of billions of dollars every year in infrastructure. These costs are much lower, hence price and cost for end users is much lower. So I think it's the next evolution of Web3, where it puts everything together, everything that happened before, puts it all together, and we start basically decentralizing the physical infrastructures for the services that we interface with in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, right. So actually I see already one question from Luis, the first one, not the second. So the first one, he's observing, like, should that cloud in the middle be actually a decentralized network of service, right? That's the whole point, basically, of IoTeX, right? So we building these Depin applications, which somehow belong to mass adoption of blockchain to me, right? It's like finally one obvious use case of blockchain in the real world, right? And that level like bridges with real world utility. And so finally we can start seeing blockchain being used for something that is really useful to our everyday lives. So yeah, that cloud should be a decentralized network of servers, and that's the whole point of the IoTeX infrastructure, actually. So at IoTeX, we have been researching and building toward bridging the physical world or devices and data with blockchain in a way that this can be really doable. So in a way that devices are actually designed to be trusted and their data is actually tamper-proof. And eventually all of this should be scalable and applicable to as many types of IoT systems that then will become Depin systems. So for sure, the thing is that today these initial Depin applications the D stands for decentralized, but it's mostly about the hardware that is decentralized and the ownership that is decentralized. But the actual Depin application itself is definitely not decentralized, right? As Lewis noticed, you have a cloud over there for basically any Depin project. Out there, they are basically IoT systems. Just they have an ERC20 token or an NFT or both deployed on any blockchain, and they're just triggering transfers of the asset from their cloud. That's today a Depin application works, and it's totally not Web3 type of applications, right? The actual token economy is visible on a blockchain, but the actual Depin logic is totally centralized and untrusted. So the thing is that replacing that cloud with something decentralized is not that easy. And that's why Depins do actually use a cloud in the first place, right? So but we came to a reference architecture for Depins that is modular, right? Because Depins eventually start from IoT systems, and IoT systems work with clouds, and clouds work with microservices and composable modules, right? And that's a very good starting point for Depins as well. So what you should build is actually a modular, decentralized infrastructure that then Depins can utilize by using these or that module based on their needs, and configure even different types of modules in the same layer based on their needs. And so that's what we identified to be a layered architecture for Depin, with layers where the blockchain is only the final token economy layer, but you should also decentralize the data streaming layer, so the connectivity, as well as the data sequencing. So you should collect all these data messages, filter them, authenticate them, validate them, put them in sequence, right? And possibly pack them for scalability. And then you want to store these somewhere. And so you need a data availability layer. And maybe you also need a long-term storage for long-term backup, just storage of data. That can be data processing that you cannot do on-chain. And finally, you need these off-chain computing to be able to prove whatever these devices are doing to the blockchain with a verifiable proof. And finally, you have an identity layer that should be intersected by all of these layers to allow for accountability, authentication, who is the user, who is owning, who is this device, who is the owner, who is the project this device belongs to, and everything. And then you probably have governance and you have more layers, right? So that's pretty complex architecture for it if you really want to decentralize a Depin application. And so in this other slide, I've left in color those layers that IoTeX actually provide for Depins to actually grow to a decentralized application. And this is, of course, the blockchain layer. And then we also provide an off-chain computing layer. I'm not going into the technical details of how each one of these layers work, but what I want to point out is that we provide the most important layers for a Depin application to be developed, the state of the art for Web3. And we are leaving out some other layers that are already available in the market somehow, right? We already have data availability layers that are already committed, right, to create a decentralized infrastructure for data storage. And as well as there are already sequencer layers, mostly for Ethereum scaling so far, but possibly Depin specific, so raw data specific sequencer layers are gonna be developed, hopefully in the future. And then there are connectivity layers. Think of Streamer right there already on the market. So what we have implemented are an hardware abstraction layer in the form of an SDK. We have the blockchain layer. We have an off-chain computing layer based on ZK, which is framework agnostic. You can use whatever ZK framework you prefer into this layer. And then we provided an identity layer to manage everything. So I don't want to speak too much. I'm going to stop here, actually. Maybe, I don't know if you, Marcos or Giuseppe, you want to add anything. Does IoTeX handle all of this? Yeah, we handle all of these products.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Assuming there was to be an integration of the graph with this, sometime soon, I'm curious exactly for the builders here, where would the builders want to pay attention to, and in what you guys are working with?
Giuseppe, you want to take this one, or I can go ahead?
Yeah. So, we can both take it, but maybe I can start. So in the first diagram that Simone was sharing with the various layers, there is that sort of like that off-chain computing layer and the blockchain layer, and like all these layers communicate with each other, right? So these layers have some on-chain component and some off-chain component. So it's the identity layer, the off-chain computing, etc. So basically, in the same way that maybe in DeFi there are like some smart contracts that it would be great to index to for various players and for various end users. Like if you maybe want to build a dashboard, or if you maybe are building the app and you want to like show some data to your users, etc. In the same way, this could be applied to this Depin stack, where, for example, let's say, for example, besides the blockchain layer, so with the token economy, let's talk about maybe the on-chain part of the identity layer. So basically, who are the devices in your network? How many devices an application has? How many rewards do they generate? How many owners? How many people in a certain network? So those are all pieces of information that are in some smart contracts. And so by indexing those contracts, then those are information that you can provide. And maybe if you're building a platform, for example, like we did with the Depin scan, that's just like, the public good. So anybody can just go and check out information about their favorite Depin projects, new Depin projects, learn more. Those are all information that are basically can be taken from the on-chain. And so, for example, that is also connected to the off-chain computing layer that has a suite of smart contracts that are on-chain, obviously, and indexing those will provide information as well, maybe for your own users if you're building the app, right? So in the graph in the diagram that Simone was showing here about the Depin infrastructure, you can see, for example, I don't know, you want to show on the left, right? How many Wi-Fi connection does a certain project have? How many locations? What kind of insights or what kind of driving behavior your users have? And those are the cool thing is that all that is somehow verified on chain, and that's what the blockchain is used for. So you don't have to just trust that that application, right? And so here, I mean, I can maybe let Simone talk a little bit more about this diagram since he made it, but it's basically what I tried to summarize here in
Sure. Basically, we have like 3 entry points for an indexer like the graph here, right? So one, as Giuseppe said, one obvious entry point is indexing those contracts on the IoTeX layer 1 that belong to all the other layers that, of course, have an anchor right on the blockchain. So we have the identity layer that also has a layer 1 component in the form of identity registries, as well as some like NFT contracts and so on. So of course, and then we have like the layer, the off-chain computing layer that also has its own layer 1 infrastructure in the form of Depin projects that are registered and Depin nodes, right, that manage this layer 2 infrastructure, as well as there is a router contract that like delivers the EK proofs from the off-chain computing to the actual Depin project, right, to distribute rewards. So all these contracts that live at the infrastructure level can be indexed using, for example, the graph, right? And this would serve all those like public goods type of applications, our own indexers, our own explorers, but also analytics websites, our analytics services that want to give an overview of the Depin landscape, right? And then you can go to, of course, the specific Depin application. All of these Depin applications will have their own concept, right? If it's based on location, they will have a location concept. If the Depin application is based on energy, they will have an energy concept. And so, of course, these applications will use the graph for their end users to provide them all the information about the specific status of the user into their application. And finally, maybe Marcus can tell us more about this part of the possible indexing. But I think the graph can also actually go and index some of the other layers other than the layer 1. We integrate, we support, right? As I said, we are not providing a data availability layer. We are providing an off-chain computing layer that interacts with existing DA layers. And these DA layers can be several ones, right? Think of Celestia or even just a centralized DA layer if that's the requirement for the Depin application. But for the decentralized ones, probably the graph can also index the actual data that these Depin projects generate, right? Because on-chain, only the proofs, the cryptographic proofs of the device behavior make their way on-chain to distribute rewards. But the actual data is actually living in a DA layer. And so if you want to provide analytics on the actual data points, right, of the applications, then you have to index the DA layer, not the layer 1. And that's another entry point for the graph, for sure. I think we talked about almost everything here. I don't know, guys, do you have, Marcus?
Well, what I'll say is I'm excited to have the Depin narrative in the graph. And it looked like they're heading in that same direction, where we are really excited for what's to come in the next few weeks. And there's just a wealth of data that I'm curious about, specifically with the actual physical objects in space and being able to actually interact with them. That to me is fascinating, being able to hop into that. So with this push that is going on with you guys with IoTeX, I'm curious if there would be anything that you would want developers here to take note of in terms of getting familiar with how to build and how to understand what you guys are doing. If there's any documents, if there's any certain materials that you'd like to share with developers and just have their eyes on. I'm curious if there's anything that comes to mind.
It's funny you ask, because I think Simone has been taking this gigantic task of updating all of our documentation, which like over the years, which is now 6 years, it covers a lot of stuff and a lot of products, and putting all of it together is pretty intense. And so Simone has been doing that for a while, and I think is almost ready to publish it, which I think would be great for developers.
Yeah, the thing is that developers should stay tuned for a few weeks more for us to actually reveal the new documentation. However, some repositories are already open sourced. For example, the off-chain computing layer, which is like goes under, what is it? Goes under the code name Sprout. So if you go and look on our GitHub, you will find this Sprout repository, which is our off-chain computing layer. There is already a README if you want to start experimenting, and this is basically allows you to process data. But you should stay tuned a few weeks, and we are going to publish the new documentation for all these modules. And there is a lot cooking, to be honest, going to be released really soon, also in terms of token economy, and to incentivize leading projects to deploy on this infrastructure. So nothing we can mention here now, but totally we are going to have another live stream with you guys.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was going to say, is that Giuseppe and I were talking about in the future week, month, to actually have a project together when that can occur. And we'll be able to show off the integration, which is quite exciting, hypothetically, of course. Just being able to see what's going on in physical space and being able to have that data be more available, just more present for builders, I think it's an exciting time. And that sounds like an exciting thing to get involved in and fair. So we'll definitely have another workshop on Depin with IoTeX, and I'm looking forward to that. And also when the docs will be out, and we'll have builders being able to really just jump in and take a look and see what they can do. So I see a question in the chat from Lewis. Could you give a use case for data analytics, on-chain analytics being my field, like UAC, UAW, etc.? And just for the listeners out there, Lewis, what is UAC, UAW? And also for me, I'm trying to understand that personally. User account created. There we go. User active wallet. Cool.
When you start talking about Depin, I mean, you have only like the choice for what data you want to talk about, right? It can be, if you start thinking of machines or devices providing services or utility, of course, I mean, going on chain, right? If you are talking about UAC or UAW, you are talking about the indexing the infrastructure contracts of IoTeX, right? So if you index the computation, like the off-chain computing layer contracts, which are the red ones here, you can start counting all the Depin projects that have been registered for utilizing our infrastructure along with their metadata of the project. And then you can move to indexing the router. So how many ZK proofs or validity proofs, to be more generic, are getting like end to the blockchain for each one of the Depin projects are registered, right? And also where these proofs are going. So what are the contracts that belong to this Depin project? And then if you want to move to indexing the identity layer, you can tell how many device identities have been registered on the blockchain. So for each device that belongs to every Depin project on IoTeX, they have an identity on the identity module of IoTeX, as well as the Depin project itself has an identity in this infrastructure, as well as the owner of the device has an identity registered into this module. And this allows you to index a lot of interesting things, from the total number of devices, right, for every project, to how many proofs are being managed by a project, to how many users a project has, or how many devices on average a user owns, as well as how many rewards a user is earning in total, or how many rewards a specific device is generating for the user. So you can index all this type of generic analytics about Depin in terms of devices and identities and proofs and activity. And then, if you want to go down and index the actual data, right, then you can be more specific. And maybe you can select a certain number of Depin projects from the registry and then link to the actual data availability layer where they store their data, and then start to analyze how much energy, how many, people are in a certain location, or depending on the Depin application, right, what's their actual data, how much connectivity or how fast the connectivity grows, right? You do have access to the actual data here, and then you can analyze anything. And so I would say for accounts and devices and owners and projects, you want to index architecture contract.
Very cool. We got a follow-up from Louis. Let's see. How many chains are you currently servicing indexing?
We do not index. You index.
That was, go ahead and go through this will be your own. Yeah, go ahead. The data will be on the IoTeX. From what I understand, correct, this will be on IoTeX, and from there, the graph will be doing the index.
Yeah, the actual raw data will be in whatever data availability layer the Depin project will use, while the proofs of some insight, right, that happened, because that's what the blockchain triggers, right? It triggers rewards not on the single data point, but it triggers rewards when something happened in the real world. And this something that happened has to be processed, has to be identified off-chain on top of whatever large volume of data, right? In the simplest case, it can be the single data point that triggers some reward. For example, the proof that I've been in a certain location, right? That data point can trigger a reward. But for example, the proof that I went there through a specific journey or trip, right? This takes into account a bigger amount of data points, right? That has to be processed off-chain, and then the proof goes on-chain. So you can index the actual proofs on the blockchain, and you can index the actual data on the data availability layer.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you guys for your time today, coming in and sharing what you guys are working on and giving a introduction to IoTeX and the graph and what is looking to be coming down the pipeline. The next steps for developers here is, if you would like to go ahead and learn more about IoTeX, please check them out. Let me find their link here.
Can I share our Twitter for?
Oh, yes. Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Yes, share the social medias, share the any links that you'd like developers here to check out. And what I'd say for builders here, just get familiar a little bit with IoTeX, because this unlocks a new direction for the graph in terms of the data that it can gather, and it's, I think, a fascinating place to be, where there's going to be physical, actual interaction with objects out there, and the graph will be able to decentralize, be able to have further levels of decentralization to that information and have it be on the graph network, which is quite exciting. So, with That being said, guys, if there's no more questions that I'm seeing in chat, I'll let Simone, Giuseppe, if there's anything else that you guys would like to say to the developers here in the chat, we can wind down, and then you can go ahead and share whatever you'd like to say. And if any developers want to hang out, we can hang out here for a little bit longer too.
Sweet. I don't know. Well, what do we want? I mean, there is a lot that we want to add, but I don't know if it's too much. But if you guys want to check IoTeX.io, and we usually send all the dev related updates through our X account, IoTeX Dev. And so, if you check that out, then, anytime there will be like new docs or like maybe guides or new things that we're going to do. So that will be the place to get those notifications. I think one thing that I was thinking it could be useful to share, or maybe wait, I'm not sure, but I was thinking, like, if you think about the graph and like indexing all this data that could come from like, various Depin projects, various types of devices, etc., etc. I think it allows builders to build pretty powerful applications, and one thing that we're seeing now, especially with the IoTeX infrastructure, where, like Simone was saying, we have all these like different modules, or different like pieces of software. It makes like applications a little bit more composable, as opposed to, let's say when Helium came out, they built their whole stack from scratch for their own specific use case. So I think now, as things get more modular, more interoperable, it allows developers to then use these data sets to build their own types of application on like somehow verified IoT data from devices all around the world. So I'm curious to see the types of applications that could be built by indexing this data and combining it with some other types of like maybe, off-chain information, and build cool apps.
Yeah, great, good point. Yeah, composability is one of the main points why Depin is also important, right? Because otherwise, think even of a decentralized Airbnb that's on chain, and then you can utilize these proofs to integrate your DeFi, right? With whatever other information you can get from a Depin application, and just move these proofs that are eventually tokenized real world behaviors, right? And then you can move these assets into DeFi applications and build whatever type of like token economy, more complex token economy on top of these Depin assets.
Yeah, that's why at the beginning, we were saying like it's kind of like an evolution, like all the DeFi stuff that's been built over the years. It's not just lost, you can still leverage it. It's just can have like an extra dimension to it, where, we talk about it often, but, you can have like, DeFi platforms that are based on whatever amount of revenue your devices could generate, for example, or other such use cases. They just make this very interesting, I think, both from developers and, at the end of the day, for end users as well, because finally, you maybe don't have to be a Web3 person to like reap the benefits. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of that's, I think, the tipping point where the usability is there today, but it is a bit complex for the average person. And I think as everyone is evolving in this space, I keep on seeing more and more people asking if there's more simplicity just for the average user. And I feel like we're heading there. And this is just another step in the right direction, I feel, to actually provide not only the value add, but also the ease of use. And that's going to be something that I'm quite excited to be a part of and help as much as I can, and be heading in that direction with you guys. So yeah, guys, well, thank you so much for your time, and builders out there, thank you so much for your time as well. If you have any questions, you guys can reach out to the IoTeX developers through IoTeX_dev. Reach out to me if you want to talk a little bit more about the graph. And anytime you guys want to talk about IoTeX, these devs are here for you as well. So be on the lookout for further developments with IoTeX, I'll say, in the near future. And enjoy the rest of your guys' day. Thanks for another good session of the Graph Builders Office Hours, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome, guys.
Bye.
Take care.